Okay, so welcome to the MMG podcast. Today we are taking a slightly different look at the progressions and trends within the industry. We're doing that with Cvent today, and we're joined by Laurence. How are we doing, Laurence?
Hello, Ryan. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Things have been sunny here in London area, and yeah, happy to join today.
Good, good. Yeah, no, actually, it's been pretty hot all round for the UK, hasn't it? So we've all been taking it a little bit easy for the weekend, I think. Um, so in terms of who you are, what you do, obviously you work with for Cvent. So tell us a little bit about what you do as a company, what your role is as well.
Yeah, sure. So I joined Cvent nearly 4 years ago. It's an event technology company at its essence, really looking at technology that comes into that event lifecycle before, during, and after the event. For marketers, a lot of the attraction to really getting Cvent as a MarTech tool is the data that you can then have integrate through all these different touch points and across all your different MarTech and other systems. But in terms of my particular role in the company, I have a demand generation hat, but also a field marketing hat. So there's lots of global campaign work looking at just what's going on in the industry with meetings and events, how different personas are being affected by what's going on. But also from a field marketing perspective, I run a lot of events myself. I'm looking across the buyer journey, seeing where we can be attracting different types of contacts, different audiences at different stages. So whether that's a user conference for those who have already adopted the Cvent platform, or much earlier in the journey, looking at webinars, looking at trade shows, and more ways to really nurture an audience. So yeah, a lot of what I can really talk about today is just in relation to what I've experienced myself, really, just seeing events playing out at the moment.
Cool. I mean, one of the things that I found like an interesting perspective was that you've got this sort of top down to it. You're not just looking at the venue side. You're not just looking at the AV side. You sort of sit in this world that's in between. Um, Now, in a virtual sense, you actually become the venue, and in
Mm.
a hybrid sense, you're sort of connecting the two worlds, right? What are the kind of trends that you're seeing at the moment? Like as far as whether people choose virtual or hybrid.
Yeah, one thing I'd say is that there are lots of budget concerns at the moment. This has been a thing for a while, but especially over the last couple of years, we've been really hearing it from customers and prospects. It does mean that companies are often really trying to find ways to minimizing costs. That does mean that some companies are actually moving away from having virtual in addition to in-person elements. One thing that we just as Cvent have been doing, and a lot of other companies are doing this too, are really making sure to keep both that virtual and that in-person experience as a core part of our larger events. And that just means that we avoid missing out on that audience that wouldn't be seeing all this content we're putting out, seeing our brand, seeing our latest products. So in a way, we're actually avoiding extra costs by having to get in front of that audience in other ways.
Hmm.
So that's a Cvent lens, but also yeah, it's affecting lots of other companies too.
I mean, this is enablement
Virtual
as
and isn't.
well,
Mm,
isn't it? Really, like allowing people to have their full audience, or allowing people that wouldn't be there to take part. Um, and in a way, like the value added um, comes down to that one person could be super important, um,
yeah.
and yet they can't be there. So you've facilitated it and made it possible. Um, It kind of sounds like there's a lot of things to do with inclusivity, really, in what you're saying, like making sure that companies actually, let everyone take part.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of change, of course, over the last 5 years or so. And one of those aspects is that there is actually more ability for individuals who can't travel to actually still make it to events and experience it in ways that they wouldn't otherwise. And when I say make it to events, I don't just mean physically. Um, for example, when Cvent puts on an event or a company uses Cvent tech, um, there's a virtual experience which is using the same platform as the in-person, but you've still got a very dedicated and thoughtful just way that those virtual attendees do experience the event. Um, so yeah, it's really making it so people aren't missing out. Of course, in person is generally preferred when organizers putting on an event, but yeah, it does mean that others can get involved.
Do you think that's because the organisers are sometimes intimidated by what seems like quite a complex kind of execution in terms of moving into the hybrid virtual space, or do you think that is a use case? Like literally, they just don't think that's needed at the moment. Then.
It does depend. I think when a company's putting on their flagship or a larger event, they're more likely to really put a lot of effort in to make sure it's done properly. Sometimes an in-person event, just in person, is seen as the easy option because they don't need to worry about having their content broadcast to a virtual audience. They can just think about how contacts audience within the room is engaging with each other. um, but but yeah, I mean, of course, there's a reason that we keep on doing our events. Just to go back to an event, our flagship that we do in Europe every year.
Hmm.
Last November, we had two. Let me get the stats actually, because it's pretty interesting. It's 2,000 in-person registrations and 1,300 virtual registrations.
Hmm.
So, that's more than half of the number of in-person that actually registered virtually. So if you think about it, like that was an event in London. Um, all these other contacts around Europe, which is the target audience for this event, which might not have had the budget to travel over, or maybe they're just not able to.
Hmm.
Going back to your inclusivity point, they're actually still able to engage in some way. So yeah, that's definitely something.
Yeah, definitely. And for you, like I'm assuming you would have seen a benefit for those people attending. Like that's more brand exposure, more
Mhm.
conversations, more things that happen. Um, so would you suggest to people then, like, like at what point would you say don't just do in person? Because obviously, I would personally say that for an award ceremony, for example, that's a real in-person celebration. However, obviously, if someone can't be there, that kind of thing, that's where the remote aspect comes in, right? But
Mm.
I would pretty much say that any event, any expo, anything that is happening in terms of the bolt on to actually make it hybrid um, should be happening, like for accessibility, but also for just like spreading your audience. Um, and if you do it consistently, people then know that you do it consistently, and then will take advantage of it.
Yeah, I would say that every event that is large enough to warrant the because it is more complex than just an in-person event. So
Hmm.
I'd say that generally there's a good case for hybrid to be on the table. There are certain types of session where I understand it can be more tricky. So if we think about roundtable discussions, if we think about just the kind of engagements where an organizer does want to have people on tables just face to face talking to each other, that can be done online. So you can have virtual chat rooms, you can have that emulated in a similar way through there. Um, but one thing that's often done is when you have a large event and you have that kind of session in person, there's a way to make it so the virtual attendees still get something really valuable. One thing that we do at CMIT Connect is that we have this thing called Connect TV, and when you've got these breaks between sessions in person, or you've got those kind of more just very face-to-face engagement kind of sessions, um, you've got more like kind of a TV show in the background with just different like clips and interesting content, which isn't necessarily meant to be for the in-person event because it's very deliberate in really being for that virtual audience. So that's one thing I'd say. It doesn't necessarily have to be the case that okay, this in-person event should completely be visible for the virtual audience. There's a way to make it so you're really thoughtful about what that virtual experience looks like.
Yeah, I mean, they only need parts, don't they? Sometimes, for example,
Mm.
or separate parts. Like we've done some things where it's almost like a TV show in terms of having two people talking in front of the camera to glue everything together. And then when the time's right, it cuts into the live,
Mhm.
keynote or whatever part it is. And then when that wraps, so too it goes back to those two people. They anchor the next part, whether that's a break or whether that's actually going to a new place. Um, and I think, yeah, it's got to be carefully considered. Like you say, the two audiences are different, and you can't just serve them the same thing and expect it to, drive in the way that everyone's happy, because you won't be. You'd be bored in certain situations. Like if you're walking around a room talking to different people, it's totally different to sitting there doing a chat and then basically waiting for it all to, go on to the next subject, isn't it?
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
and think about sports coverage. It's, that's an example where it is done
mhm.
already. You don't need to necessarily think about business events to have that example where whether it's physical sports or esports, you do have a different experience. You'll have people between, in the breaks and the intermissions and so on, who do give commentary on what's been going on. So yeah, I think that's a good example you gave there.
Same, but different, isn't it? The other thing that I thought of actually when you were saying about those bits is to do with hybrid. So also the fact that hybrid doesn't just have to be from a in-person space to online. Like hybrid can also be let's connect two spaces. So say for example, um, you've got a hotel chain and they've got X number of people in the States, and that's like the sort of core component, let's say. But then you're limited because of travel and things like that. Um, Utilizing another sort of area in the same chain, say in the UK, that kind of thing, you can then bond the two spaces together. Now, that is a totally different use case for hybrid. And I don't know if you'll have seen much of that at the moment or not, because up until now, like latency and things have not been perfect. So you end up talking over each other and things. We're actually pushing out a product called the Axis at the moment, which does exactly that. So that's why we're getting quite excited. And we're just going to start putting it into, well, there's one chain, but I can't name them at the moment, to basically test and sort of flagship it. But I wondered what you thought to that, because like there's got to be ways that you can bond that together in a really nice way.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's not actually something we've been really seeing so much ourselves. But it does show that you don't necessarily need to see it as, okay, this hybrid experience is a camera at the back of the room recording what's happening just for a virtual audience to see. You can really be creative with it. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think what you're developing there sounds like a good example there.
Cool. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought you'd hear loads about it yet because of the fact that the majority of the things there that was done was when COVID was happening and joining spaces, and it wasn't
Mm,
quite as tight. Whereas now, like I say, we've got it really on point. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to sharing much more about that.
yeah.
In our notes, I have got here as well, like to sort of look at the idea of sustainability around this as well. So, um, with what Cvent do, I actually think that you do push forward and increase the sustainability side because of allowing the virtual aspect, but also the way that you don't have to have everything done in one place with people going, using all their travelling, fuel consumption, everything else. Um, what do you think are the big benefits there, like sustainability wise?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look especially at an overseas audience that you might be attracting to an event, um, by far the biggest carbon footprint contributor for a business event is visitors traveling to the event. That's generally seen by most organizations, really. And it's not even just that, which could be cut by certain attendees just attending in virtual instead.
Hmm.
It's also just the size of a venue that's needed, the amount of food and beverage that needs to be organized, logistics. So all these elements of an event which would contribute to that carbon footprint, yeah, that can be negated. Now, of course, an organizer might want there to be a higher proportion of in-person attendees in the audience because maybe they'll just have better success metrics coming out of it. But it really shouldn't be ignored the fact that there's a big sustainability aspect to just bringing in virtual attendees, not just in person.
Cool. One thing as well, like we've talked about sort of loose trends and things, but I thought maybe it'd be quite good to dig a little bit deeper around what Cvent do. So say for example, I've got a hybrid event. I'm an organizer, and I'm looking at having a venue, and then also looking at having people, watch online. Now we work with
Mm.
you guys, and we've done all sorts of productions, streaming in. Um, so we've got quite an insight, but maybe the audience doesn't know exactly what's on offer. So
Mhm.
perhaps take us through the kind of journey for someone when they're planning, and then when it's actually, taking place.
Yeah, sure. So let's talk about an event life cycle for an event professional.
Hmm.
Like you say, organize a hybrid event. Um, for the in-person aspects, they'll want to have a venue secured. So there's the Cvent Supplier Network, which is the venue sourcing platform, which is part of this just big network of solutions which Cvent is part of. Tons of hotel chains, CVBs, and others which can be found on there.
Okay, so we've spoken about all different bits in terms of sustainability, different bits like that, hybrid, virtual. Now, for the audience, if they don't know what Cvent do, I think it's quite important that we go over that a little bit because we've worked with you guys on some quite large scale events. So obviously we've seen from the inside how it works, what goes on, and produced the broadcast to go into the platform. Um, can you take us on a journey, perhaps, from like a planner's perspective of kind of when they should contact you? Presumably when they're planning, early days would be ideal, but that's not always the way. So yeah, when's the best point to start, and what's their journey with you guys?
Yeah, sure. Well, if we're talking about, say, a big hybrid event, um, a good 12 weeks in advance is a pretty good recommendation, really, because there can be quite a lot to go through. Of course, the Cvent team would be able to give lots of guidance in that respect, but the place where it all really starts is on the Cvent Supply Network. So that's the venue sourcing tool, which Cvent offers to event professionals for free. Um, Hotels, CVBs, other just ways to see what venues would be appropriate for the event can be found on there, at least from the in-person perspective. Um, and in terms of actually the event platform, which can enable the whole event to be created, planned, promoted, delivered, um, that would be the Cvent registration product, and that can be used for creating the websites, sending out email marketing for promotion, having the list managed, speaker management, all that really. And that is used for both the in-person and the virtual elements. So you've still got that same view of the sessions. And this is also what's represented on the attendee side with the Attendee Hub event app.
Hmm.
So when they're actually on site at the event, or even just someone who's on their computer at home for those virtual attendees, that's how the attendee is consuming that content and how they can engage in polls, in surveys, Q&A, things like that when they're actually event. And that's whether they're in person or they're virtual, just a slightly different view of things depending on that. Um, when you're actually at the event, you'll probably want to have on-site solutions in the form of self-serve kiosk check-in, and that would just make it nice and simple. So you're not having to have Excel spreadsheets that you're ticking off every time a new person walks through the doors. You don't need to pre-print badges.
Yeah.
People just pop their name in, or they scan a QR code. Most of us will have seen this kind of thing before, and yeah, just a really quick process for that. So that's the kind of thing which is also taught through with Cvent professional, when getting things set up. Um, there's analytics which can be then seen in terms of session check-ins and who's come, all the kind of event analytics you want to see. It comes out of the event. But it is to an extent a case of just seeing what's most important in your own situation. For a complex hybrid event, you probably want to get quite a lot of the Cvent solutions involved there. And because Cvent offers so much, you get to have that just consolidated view of everything without having to just, get point solutions from all different kind of places. Um, but yeah, some companies just come to Cvent for on-site solutions, or just particular things. Maybe just the event app. So yeah, it really depends on the complexity, and what makes sense for each company.
Cool. I mean, in terms of working with you guys, like I tend to find the journeys quite seamless. Um, it doesn't come from not doing plenty of work in the background from both your side, our side. But that's always part of the fun, right? And the client actually gets a seamless journey. And it does involve a bit of work to make that all happen. Uh, but the results are always great. Like we were doing, what was it, 5 streams concurrently, 24 hours a day, for 3 days in a row.
Mm.
And actually, the takeaway from that was that we had like 3 error tickets where actually all 3 were resolved. And it was more just the point that that was, what we had to deal with there. Out of 150 sessions, for them all to happen and only have 3 queries that we were really sort of playing with, that's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds like what most people would want. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like the outcome's good. I
Mhm.
think what I'm trying to say there is that if you work with yourselves and us at the same time, then you do get a really well-oiled machine, and that's something that we sort of pride ourselves on, and we need people like yourselves to work with to deliver that as well, because we need to know that both sides are being looked after. Um,
Yeah, Cvent's been going since the 90s. So yeah, there's been obviously a lot of just things to get right and just improve over time. So yeah, it's gotten us to a point where things are hopefully pretty smooth.
been on a journey. That's the
Yeah.
thing. So in terms of Cvent, right? Let's just sort of do a quick check back to make sure that we covered general points, and then I was going to ask
Mhm.
you some questions about yourself. Actually, just we always do on the podcast, just to
Yeah.
find out where people were from, what their sort of story is, and things. Um, Now, there was one thing that I had noted down here as well, which was actually that with your platform, it doesn't just have to be hybrid, virtual, etc. Like there is this element of recorded content as well. So actually looking at the concept that your event can include more things now even than just, a keynote, a speech here, etc. Like you can be very specific about what you hand out. Um, what sort of things have you seen? What kind of, I don't know, like media spread have you seen?
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned there you had an event with 5 sessions. We do something similar for Cvent Connect. Um, and by the way, Cvent Connect is the way to just see Orbis in action. So we bring customers, prospects. Got another one coming up this October. You can probably see it in my virtual background. 15th, 16th October. It's all for event professionals to really just see like how to go about meetings, events
Mhm.
today in the best way possible. Get the most out of the events channel for marketers.
Whereabouts
Um,
is that taking place?
Oh, sure. It's in London. So this year it's at the O2 Intercontinental Hotel. So yeah, it's out of North Greenwich. It's right there. Um, but yeah, in terms of when you've got a situation where you've got 5 sessions, of course you can't expect a virtual attendee to consume each of those sessions at the same time. That's impossible. So what's generally done is that you'd have a virtual stream, maybe like a main stage stream or whatever's seen as the highlight for that particular time period. And then it's still very much worth recording other sessions that are happening, and you can then have that as on-demand content. Maybe you have a hub on your website where you can house a lot of that content, and you can also cut bits down, really repurpose it, pop it on the likes of YouTube Reels, or if TikTok is a platform that works for your company, use that. Um, there's just tons that you can do with video content. I think especially now, that's just really the content format which is really working for a lot of companies. So yeah, it definitely isn't just thinking about streaming. Recorded content is definitely a big focus at the moment.
I think it drives as well, like a story, doesn't it? Like a narrative for a business,
Mhm.
by having that content available, and it lets people follow their story more and more. Like this is something that marketing has done for quite some time, but it's now got to like quite a minute detail. Like if you're actually telling a story, it's daily or
Hmm.
multiple times a day that people can interact and join that. Whereas before, maybe it was like, once a week when an advert went out or a newspaper article was there or something. So it's much more about taking everyone along for the journey. Um, we also see it a lot for like internal communications as well, because now it's easier to do this. It's easier to pre-record footage. It's easier to stream it out across the whole of the network of the workplace, um, and actually it delivers a much better return. So when you've got like a leadership team that are telling people about what's happening next, that kind of thing, the engagement level is just so much higher, and it's actually quite a lot easier for a lot of people to digest when someone's talking directly to them rather than just reading through a document.
Hmm.
And then they can all join a call, later in the day, later in the week, and just go over any questions. Um, Everyone's already had time to think about it. There was no surprises. It's just sort of changing the way things flow, which I think is quite cool. It works well from the companies we've seen.
Yeah, and people consume content differently, right? Some people might be more receptive to written text about a particular topic matter. Others might be more interested and really consume content which is in more in a video form. So it goes back to this whole multi-channel marketing approach, right? It's it's not really a good use of time to have a completely separate piece of content which are built up from the ground for each individual channel. It's the best use of time I'd recommend in terms of having a unified message which goes out across them. You
Mhm.
can repurpose not just I'm not just talking about like shortening a video recording into a clip, but it's also maybe making a blog post comprising of the kind of language communication in a session at an event. And yeah, you can take it in lots of different ways.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I would always encourage people to do that. Like that's one of the main takeaways here. Um, we've done events before where actually the content is still driving, 6, 8 months after the event. And some of the time that's because people weren't aware of the event at the time. They weren't engaged with the company. So therefore they didn't know it was going to happen. They then wanted to know what was taking part and what did happen, and they're watching, they're consuming that, and then it just increases the numbers for next year as well because of that interest. So it's sort of self-served advertising in a way. It's good.
And it
Um,
will help you to justify the spend towards what it goes into making an in-person event a hybrid event instead. So, that recording of that content, that session,
mhm.
isn't just thinking about, okay, yeah, we got this virtual audience to consume a session. You should also factor in that ongoing extended engagement that content will allow.
So sort of stepping into the next bit before we delve into what you did and where you come from to sort of be where you are receiving at the moment. Um, we've talked about the cost benefit, so that obviously makes sense, right? Um, Recorded content, reusing things, and sort of general trends. Now, where do you think things are going to go? So, like, let's really open the doors in the next 5 years. Um, and what makes the most sense to you? Like, bearing in mind what tools are available now. Um, like, do you think everyone's going to be wearing, camera glasses and tuning into each other's worlds, or is it going to be more toned down? Like, where's the balance?
Yeah, I mean, what's happening right now, of course, is everyone is thinking AI. How can we make our process more efficient? Something that Cvent is really leaning on at the moment is making it so the actual process for an event professional to spin up an event and have this ongoing event program is just less of a resource strain because we get it. Everyone is very resource strained right now. So when it comes to like abstract and content creation, that's really a big thing. Just any ways where that efficiency gain can be made, but also where that personalization can be done more at scale. So you're really looking at the different audiences that you're attracting to an event um, differently, and you're able to just really leverage what's coming out of a lot of these products at the moment. I can see that becoming more of a thing as time goes on. Another trends that I'm really seeing, and I think this will continue as well, is marketers taking more ownership of events. So it's not just the centralized meetings and event team. And that, of course, that's still going to be a crucial team when it comes to these larger tier one events. But to make it so this resource strain is alleviated, a lot of marketers are really starting to own roundtables and VIP dinners and really find ways to be able to plan, promote, and deliver those themselves. Still with that um, auditing from the meets and event team, make sure everything's aligned. There's brand alignment, things like that. But yeah, I can see that to continue to be a trend.
Got yeah. Well, I think it's going to be super interesting. I think 5 years is actually quite a long time to kind of try and forecast, especially that if you rewound 5 years from now, like the changes are so vast. I don't think things are going to settle down. Um, like
Mm.
there's still going to be technology coming. A lot of what I've looked at and the way we're sort of perceiving it is more to do with kind of re-looking at everything because we've made a lot of adjustments based on needs, let's say. So people needed to still be able to meet but couldn't because of COVID and things like that. And it was a bit Apollo 13, really, in all honesty, in terms of pulling things together, different equipment, try to make it work. Does this do that? Maybe let's try that, working through to the point now where we've got all this sort of technology that's highly efficient at doing the things that we wanted to be able to do 5 years ago in the same way.
Mm.
So now I think it's more a question of like, well, what do we have a responsibility to do? Do we have the responsibility to start removing technicians from venues more and have them remote so that we're not causing us, a bigger carbon footprint for people moving around? But also like making repairs super easy then in a venue. Like if something goes wrong, it's just a simple component done, and then the rest is all off site. So yeah, I'm not sure who takes ownership of that. Is it the production company? Is it people like yourselves? Is it the end client? I guess we'll see. I just think it's a conversation, really. In terms of talking about yourself, because I did want to go into that just a little bit.
Mhm.
It was intriguing to me because obviously we had a little chat beforehand, caught up and things. But where it all started for you seemed to sit a little bit more in my world.
Yeah.
And then you stepped over. So tell us a bit about that. Tell us where your world sort of comes from.
Yeah, sure. So before events, I was in a networking conferences company, and I was there for 6 years. So it was very small, much smaller than events, about 20 of us, and I was leading the marketing department. But we'd also go on site to the events. So I was with the team delivering every event in person too. And my role at every one of these events was I was in the main room on the AV. So I was handing the microphones to presenters, managing the sound, trying to avoid the nightmare situation of that feedback, which which haunts all of us who are involved in that, and yeah, of course, looking at visual too. So yeah, I definitely had a lot of just that first-hand experience in terms of what to look out for from that broadcast perspective in room.
Cool. And then obviously you got into, more and more the other side, the planning, the nature of taking people through the journey. The totally different side, obviously. Which do you prefer?
What to prefer? Well, one thing I'd say is that just in terms of day to day, I really like the um, belonging in a larger marketing team. It just means there's so much more that can be done with different marketing channels, more room for creativity, I'd actually say. When I was in the previous role, we really just had to very much focus on um, the best use of time to just using like very limited marketing channels. So like email would be like the majority of my day and looking at who these emails would be going to, so audience management. Um, but now, yeah, it just really widens up. And interesting enough, I'm actually more involved in events from a planning perspective now, even though I was in this events company before, just because I'm looking at how we can really engage our audience, whether that's on the prospect or customer side.
Got ya. So based on where you came in, like, have you got any advice for people that are looking to get into the industry? Like, we always ask this every podcast, and some of it is, get into a company, get through the door, and just try and plod along. Other is
Mm.
a more sort of like university degree, then do this. Like, what's your current recommendation with the industry as it is at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation would be experience. I I don't regret taking my degree, but what I will say is that um, my first year of working at my previous company was more valuable in terms of just understanding about the industry and just working as a marketer than all my 4 years of my bachelor's degree combined. Of course, that is really valuable. I had an amazing time at university, and from a market research perspective, that was really useful too, just understanding how that can all work. But yeah, just getting involved with different projects, putting yourself out there so that you get just more visibility into just like how it all runs. I think that's really the way to go.
Cool. Um, I'm just having a little scan over what we've sort of chatted about, really. And at the moment, we've got like obviously hybrid virtual, why things are going to stay around, like in the mix, which, that makes perfect sense from both of our worlds, I think. Inclusivity and accessibility, which obviously we've spoken about a little bit there. Sustainability costs. There's all sorts of bits and bobs that we've covered, which is great. Um, where can people learn more about things? So obviously we've touched on each of those briefly. Like, is there a good place that people can go to find out more?
Yeah, well, I mean, one recommendation I give is actually Cvent Connect Europe. So it is a hybrid event. So yeah, 15th and 16th October. That's the place that I'd recommend first and foremost in terms of just understanding the best way to go about getting the most attendee experience out of attendees, just the event life cycle and
Hmm.
how to make it as efficient as possible. Marketers, there's tons of content as well, and it's also just the best example of how all these types of technology can actually come in to make an event just more impactful and more interesting. So that'd be one thing. It's a little while until October, so one thing we can make sure to do is just in the comments for this video, include a link to our top 10 meetings and events trends for 2025.
Hmm. Cool.
And that just gives like good guidance in terms of what's happening at the moment from lots of insights that we've had, and our recommendations based on those.
Great. Okay. Um, is there anything else you wanted to chat about at all today? Any other topics?
I think we're good. No, I think it's we're in a good place. I'm really glad that hybrids is staying, and it just means that there's so much more creativity that we can take. Your team are doing great things, um, and yeah, no, you know how to reach out with us. Definitely recommend Cvent Connect Europe, but just on the Cvent website itself has lots of stuff too, so that's a good place to look as well.
Great stuff. Okay, well, obviously, if anyone does want to check out any more info and find out more, then they can head over to those places. That's great. We'll make sure that they get a little link in the description so they can click on those. I guess really it's just a case of saying that we'll see you next time on the podcast, and have a good day.